Hello, everybody, on this unusual Parsha talk here. I am calling into you from Jerusalem, Israel, in my room in the Inbal Hotel here on Parshat Vayeshev, as we each contribute our long distance, our disconnected thoughts on this Parashat Vayeshev. It's impossible to overstate how important clothing is in the various stories of Breshit, from the beginning of the naked Adam and Eve, who don't know to be ashamed about their nakedness, and then they get clothing of leather, which lets them leave paradise and go into the world. The clothing that is key to all the stories about Yaakov. Jacob attains his position of leadership through a deception about clothing when he puts on Esav's clothing and tries to make him seem hairier than he is. He does this, but it's really at Rivka's connivance that happens, and that enables him to deceive his blind father and get the birthright, get the blessing as a communal leadership. But the Bible is not happy with Yaakov for that, and so he then gets immediately becomes the victim of another deception that is about clothing when he thinks he's marrying Rachel, but of course he's actually marrying Leah, who's wrapped up obviously snug as a bug in a rug in a big gigantic burqa, and he doesn't even after consummating the marriage with her, he doesn't even know who she is. You have those two stories of one of the Bible's favorite, favorite narrative technique is midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Jacob cheated, connived, deceived with clothing. He gets cheated. He gets deceived. He is the victim of connivance with clothing in the marital arrangement between Jacob, Rachel, and Leah and Lavan. But the story doesn't even stop there because the matters of aloneness, alienation, pain get reinforced around the KETONET PASIM, the coat of many colors as translated into English, or perhaps the striped coat or the coat of long sleeves. Jacob, as the Torah says, Jacob just loves Joseph more than all the other children, because Joseph, until the birth of Benjamin, is the only child of Jacob's true love, true wife, Rachel. And so even though Joseph is not the physical firstborn, he comes after lots of other brothers. He is treated as the firstborn. He's given this special clothing, which marks him as the firstborn, and that just makes the other brothers hate him even more because he is prodigiously talented. He is connected to God. He does get these veridical dreams about his own great leadership, and all those things are true. Like, just imagine if your younger brother, turned out to be, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, or your younger brother turns out to be, I don't know, fill in some other blank about just everything comes to him. He's gorgeous, he's talented, and he always ends up on top. And it's got to always be a little bit hard to have been the older brother of this younger brat who is the father's favorite and who just succeeds at everything, um, and flaunts the clothing as a symbol of that. Now, Jacob gave him the clothing. Jacob is the one who, by virtue of this gift, almost like triggered the violence of the reaction of the older brothers. And of course, this is what's gonna happen. He comes to find them as they are pasturing the flock up in the area near Shechem. They rip the coat off him. They rip the coat. They throw him into a pit. He then gets sold into slavery, unbeknownst to the brothers. They don't do the selling into slavery exactly, but they make it happen. The prophet Amos, says, "You sold the righteous for a pair of shoes," referring to them. Maybe they didn't do the selling, but they set the process in motion, which eventuates in the selling. But they rip off the coat. They rip the coat, they dip it in goat's blood and say, huh, they bring it to the father and say, huh, we found this. Do you recognize this? Is this possible? What could this be? And Jacob, uh, they don't exactly lie. They set him up, though, to draw a false conclusion. They don't say a wild animal killed your son. They say, what's this coat? Have you ever seen this before? And they dipped it in blood, and without actually telling a lie, they set up Jacob to falsely believe that Joseph was dead. Um, Now, that story is really strange because it would have been a whole lot easier for them to say, he never found us. Like, where's Joseph? I don't know. He never found us. We haven't seen him in weeks. They didn't have to do the ruse with the coat, but their rage not exactly acted out upon Joseph's body himself. The rage is acted out upon the coat. The rage, is acted out upon the cloth manifestation of Joseph's preeminence, and that's why they give it to him, and that becomes the instrument for Jacob feeling that Joseph is dead. So it seems to be really significant that the Torah does not take the obvious narrative technique of just saying that the brothers never, no, Joseph never reached us, we have no idea. And they wouldn't have even had to be even half complicit in the deception. But, the story of Joseph is told, um, at least partly because of, Joseph's lording it over them, his kind of brattiness. He's not a terribly sympathetic character, in this respect because, you know, he's kind of happy with how much power he has. But when he comes looking for them and he doesn't know where they are, and he meets this, providential figure, a human or an angel, and he says, Et achai anochi mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers. Now, that's not just, hey, where are the sheep? I'm looking for my brothers. Joseph, for all of his failings, he also wants to be the loving brother. He wants to be the beloved brother. He wants to be connected to his brothers. And it's not working. It's not working. And the coat is the very symbol here in Breshit 37 of that alienation. Um, Later on, of course, Joseph will be dressed as an Egyptian with an Egyptian name, and the enmity between them goes on. And once again, that's told through a story of costuming and deception. So it's a sad story, and the clothes that we wear are often determinative of the bad relationships that we have. Okay, fast forward to the fall of 2023. I want to just tell you about many of you will have known this already or have heard it already, but there was a poem that went around called "A Coat of Many Colors." Uh, I don't really know anything about the woman Racheli Moshkovitz who wrote this poem, but it went around in those early days of the war, and it is really the opposite of how a certain kind of coat of many colors or diversity, instead of suggesting that brotherly alienation, et achai anochi mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers, I can't ever find them. In this case, a certain kind of experience of Israeli life uh, rests on sharing a diverse coat in a strange way. And I'll read this to you in English, even though it's originally in Hebrew. Um, the first line in Hebrew, B'ni chazar me'amaracha, v'tarmilo mitpakea. My son returned from the battlefront, his duffel bag bursting, mikol ma shelo ani aravti lo. With all the things, shelo ani arazti lo, with all the things that it wasn't me who packed for them. There were socks donated by Jews in Argentina, a quilted blanket smelling like someone else's home, a blue towel from a family from the Moshav, tzitzit from Jerusalem, a fleece jacket gifted by a high-tech company, a scarf knitted by an elderly lady, undershirts purchased by online shoppers, a sheet given to him by a friend, gloves bought by teenage girls, a jacket from the closet of someone who came and requested to give. I spread out all these garments, the mother in the poem says, I spread out all these garments and weave together a new coat of many colors. See, Yosef, your brothers were really there for you. Re'eh Yosef, aravu lecha achecha. In the end of the day, you found your brothers. And here I am in Israel. We spent a lot of time in our synagogue trip in the areas that were affected in 10/7 and meeting people, and such a gruesome and terrible time of isolation, alienation, and pain. And I know the first time I came here was since the war began in late 23. I came with like 12 duffel bags of those gifts. And while the coat of many colors in the Torah can connote a lot of alienation in our own lifetimes, and tremendous kudos to the poet Racheli Moshkovitz for pointing it out. There's a kind of coat of many colors that signals, Et achai anochi mevakesh, I'm looking for my brothers. Well, you found them. Shabbat Shalom.